I feel the need for speed. Let's review Top Gun Maverick. Gonna do some non-spoiler talk up front, and then spoilers after that. I'll clearly let you know, so you can click away if you need to. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Way of the Dad podcast, where we fearlessly dive into the depths of dadness. If you like what you are hearing, please share the podcast and give it a review on the platform where you listen. Thank you. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. And welcome back to a shockingly but very welcome positive review. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be gushing. I walked out of that theater and this was 2 days ago now that I'm recording this. Saw it on Friday. And I'm just blown away. This is how going to the movies should make you feel. This is how movies are supposed to be made. You know, I'm a kid of the 80s, and I was born in 80. And I grew up watching, of course, Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude, Steven Seagal, Bruce Willis movies, And of course, there's a bunch of others in there that were good, but maybe the star didn't take off, Only so many people can really own the spotlight, right? And of course, I grew up watching Tom Cruise movies. Top Gun, Days of Thunder, Risky Business, Color of Money, Rain Man. Now not all of them were action movies, obviously. He was a little more broad back then, right? He did all kinds of movies, dramatic, action, all kinds of stuff. But movies back then, when you watch them today, they stand out in a lot of ways. Now, of course, a lot of them have that fine 80s cheese, right? Of course they do. Even some of the 90s ones have a little bit of cheese left over from the 80s. But there's very little CGI. And I think in the beginning we were all wowed by CGI. I was. I'll admit. And of course, CG allowed movie makers to do things that would not physically be possible, either due to it would absolutely, kill the actor or the stunt person in place of the actor, or because there were too many fantastical elements that you just can't make that work with practical effects, right? Now, of course, I could tell you George Lucas would disagree with all that, at least in the original trilogy, but then in the prequel trilogy, well, I don't hate the prequels. I actually like them quite a bit, but they do have their cheesy points to them. They do have their, loss a little bit. When they went to almost, I'm not going to say entirely green screen, but an extraordinary amount of green screen, they lost a little bit of something, right? Now, of course, we all know as the prequels went on, the CG got better. Revenge of the Sith looks significantly better than Phantom Menace, especially in those obvious green screen moments. But these movies back in the 80s, back in the 90s, and even some in the 2000s, and you get some people who are trying to still do that today, making them real, in screen, on camera, making everything happen on camera. And that is what is so shocking as you walk out of this movie, because you can tell. So, what do I think of Top Gun Maverick? I think you've already figured it out. It is phenomenal. It is a stunning breath of fresh air. It is that breath of fresh air you didn't even know you weren't breathing. You thought you were breathing fresh air. You thought you were breathing clean, fresh air. And then you found out that you were totally wrong because you weren't even close to breathing fresh air. This is probably my, and I don't like doing this because I don't like making these kind of determinations when I'm so close to something. I like to let it simmer off for a while and then see, because there's been times where I've walked out of a movie and I'm like, oh my God, that was great. And then a week later, I'm like, it wasn't that great. It was good. But I feel comfortable saying this because everything was so real about the movie. This is probably one of my top 3 movies that I've seen in the last 20 years. There it is. And the big part of it is, well, it's everything, okay? It's the cinematography. It's the story. And when I say story, I don't just mean dialogue. Story writers do a lot more than write the dialogue. They write the whole movie, and they set the scenes that build on top of each other and building towards this thing. And I see this happen a lot when you see these shows and you're watching a show and you're like, well, that was, you see the hero get out of something and it's awfully convenient, or the villain figures something out and it seems awfully convenient. That is a failure of story writing. The writers couldn't figure out, they wrote themselves into a corner and they couldn't figure out how to get out of it. And so they just threw in a contrived convenience to get the character out of it, instead of going back through, refine it before. Now, I'm not a story writer, so I'm sure if anybody is a writer, I'm sure they're rolling their eyes at me right now. But I see that a lot, and it just speaks to laziness. And of course, let's be honest, let's give some credit where it's due. Some of these writers are under immense pressure and time crunch. I mean, they have to get this done right now. They don't have time to work it out anymore, because some of these studios, they want, we got to have a movie out every so often, right? Well, this is where another part where Top Gun shines. It was worth the wait. This thing has been in development for over a decade. And I hate to say it, I think even before Val Kilmer had his throat surgery. This has been in development for over a decade. And Tom Cruise keeps going back and, nope, I don't like it. We need to rework this. He's said in a few interviews he was not going to do this until he was thrilled with the script, the setup, and everything. And he wasn't going to do it just to do it. And Paramount has apparently been about 3 feet up his, large intestine about wanting to make another movie because they know it'd be a hit. Well, Paramount should be real happy they waited, because you got something. It's like vodka, okay? And if you've ever drank vodka straight, you can tell the difference between a good one and a bad one simply because it just burns. It's rough. It's nasty. It's harsh. Now, there's significantly more to it, but one of the easy ways for a novice like me, I'm not highly educated on the finer points of vodka, but one of the easiest ways to tell whether a vodka is going to be at least possibly decent for drinking is how many times it's been distilled. The more, the better. Or at least potentially the better. And that's what this story is. This thing's been distilled and redistilled and distilled again and distilled again and distilled again until there are almost no plot, I don't want to say plot holes, but points in the plot where you could tell they just could not figure out how to make this scene work, and so they just wrote a contrivance or convenience into it so that they could get the characters through it and on to the rest. It is 2 massive thumbs up and big toes and whatever. Okay, this movie is phenomenal. It is absolutely worth every penny of the ticket price. I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money, but what I'm telling you is you really want to see it on the big screen. And if you can see it in the Premiere or the Premium or the XD or the Dolby Atmos or whatever the premium cinema theater is, yeah, go see it. If you can see it in IMAX, definitely go see it in IMAX. So basic plot overview is we pick up with Maverick 30 or I think it's 35 years later or whatever it is from the events of the original movie. And he is basically now a test pilot, still for the Navy, but he's a test pilot in these, top secret programs, testing planes. And of course, he's still Maverick. He's still getting himself in trouble with the brass. He's dodging promotion. That's how he's still. He's only a captain at this point, because if he gets any more promotion, he's going to get grounded. And he doesn't want to be grounded. He's a pilot, and that's all he ever was. And I respect that. So he, of course, gets himself afoul of another admiral after taking this experimental plane on a test run. Gets in trouble because he wasn't supposed to, and just by chance gets recalled to Top Gun. They want him to teach the next generation of fighter pilots, because he's like the only person left that has any real flight combat experience left. It's very, very few and far between. Almost nobody has any, and he's one of the few that's still an active pilot that does. So that's the basic plot overview. Quickly wrapping up the non-spoiler section. The cinematography is absolutely phenomenal. Joseph Kosinski and his team were the right choice for this. Of course, he's worked with Tom Cruise before. They've worked together on Oblivion, which was a gorgeous movie. And, of course, Joseph Kosinski, if I remember correctly, I think his first movie was Tron Legacy, which everybody kind of picks on the CG de-aging of Jeff Bridges in that movie. But let's be honest, that technology was pretty young back then. It wasn't bad for what it was then. Of course, that'd never play today. But that movie's actually really good. And I would encourage you to... Joseph Kosinski has a really good eye. Tron Legacy is far better than it got a chance to be in the theaters. And unfortunately, I guess it was kind of like Tron. I don't think Tron hit the theaters real hard. But of course, once it came to DVD, or back then it'd be VHS, right? It grew a cult following. And I would highly recommend you check out Tron Legacy. It is a really good movie. I'm not saying that everything is perfect in the movie, but it's a really good movie. It's still to this day one of me and my son's favorite movies to watch together. Of course, it has a father-son dynamic, but the visuals are amazing. The visuals in Oblivion are amazing, and the visuals in Top Gun Maverick are amazing. Story, phenomenal. Not just the dialogue, but the character building, and even smaller characters feel like they get something to chew on. Some movies, they basically have 3 or 4 main people, and then a whole bunch of background filler, disguised as characters. Even the smaller characters get a good amount of character building. They get moments to shine, to say something, to do something. Never taking away from the main characters, the obvious main characters of the story. But the acting is phenomenal. I mean, it's top-notch. The character portions, the action portions, everything is phenomenal. So, that's going to wrap up the non-spoiler section. I am going to go into spoilers now. And if you don't want to hear that, if you haven't seen the movie, I really, really want you to do one thing. A couple things. I want you to pause this, save it, whatever, go see the movie, and then come on back. Because I'll be amazed if anybody thoroughly disagrees. I mean, we might have a little, disagreement about this side or the other. I would be amazed if anybody has a thorough disagreement with most of the rest of the stuff I'm going to say, because almost all of this movie is just universally good and enjoyable. And that's something that's so rare these days. So, getting into spoilers now. Last warning. There's so much done right in this movie with the story. And one of the things that still strikes me is how caringly, how carefully, and lovingly they wrote this story to respect the original, to appreciate the original, to not subvert your expectations of the original, or do something that basically shits all over the original, but at the same time, not use the original story as a crutch. They didn't basically say, hey, let's take the plot beats of this movie and just rely on that and just kind of do it again. Now, I know some people might say that it looks like they did, but I'll say that I feel like they rode that line really well. It is not the same movie, but there are echoes of the previous movie. But the story supports that, and that's why it doesn't bother me. That's why it doesn't offend me or irritate me or whatever. Because this is a little bit of, the story is the past is coming back to haunt Maverick. And I don't mean in a hardcore way, but the tragic moments of his past are coming back front and center to him. And he's kind of avoided them, and he's kind of been trying to get, just, he's never really dealt with it so much as he's just put it away. And this movie shows that. And it's bringing it all up fresh. They don't copy and paste the original movie, and I respect the hell out of that because that's one of the easiest things to do. And we all know in Hollywood, these days, they love to copy and paste. I mean, think about it. Have you ever watched even just, say, 5-10 romantic comedies in your life? You've probably seen most of them then. The romantic comedy type of movie is usually the most cut and paste, or copy and paste, I should say, way to make movies. And it makes money, because all you have to do is get some decent star talent in there, and people will go see, ooh, I can't wait to see this actor and this actress or whatever, blah, 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 right? And they throw in enough comedy to make it enjoyable, and that doesn't mean you can't enjoy these movies. But you're not seeing anything original very often. It's really rare. Okay? So, the callbacks to the previous movie are very tasteful, very meaningful, and they're not gratuitous. They're not like, hey, remember that thing that happened in the previous movie? Wink, wink, wink. They're done for a purpose. Everything in this story seems to make sense, and it has a purpose. And it wasn't where, ooh, well, we don't have a really good way to write this callback in here, but we'd love to Easter egg it. It makes sense. So, getting into some spoilers, obviously, they give you some history, some quick dialogue that does a good job of letting you know where he's been this past 35 years. When he gets called back to Top Gun and they give him his orders because he thought he makes a comment about, I didn't think I'd ever be invited back. And the one of the guys there goes, they're called orders, Maverick. And I thought that was a funny line. And I know it was in the trailer, but it's really good in the movie too. And so he's to basically teach these prior graduates of Top Gun. These are the best of the best in the Navy currently, and they're all Top Gun graduates. They're bringing him back there for a special assignment because there is a unnamed rogue nation that is definitely not start with an I in the Middle East, because it's pretty obvious that that's what they're basically tongue-in-cheek referencing, is Iran. But I love how it's unnamed. And they have a nuclear facility coming online in like 3 or 4 weeks. And since Maverick is the only pilot left, and this is basically the mission that they're putting them on is basically considered to be a suicide mission. And they bring on Maverick to teach these Top Gun graduates things they don't know, because they even make a point of referencing that Glenn Powell's Hangman is like the only one in the room that even has a kill in the air. And of course that tells you how air power, dogfights don't happen very often anymore. So, and of course, Cruise has 3, or Maverick has 3 kills. So obviously he's still a little ahead of the younglings there. And so he has to, kind of in the way you break a horse, I guess. I'm definitely not an expert in this, but you got to break the horse down before you can help it reach its full potential as a racehorse or a riding horse or whatever it is, right? And these guys all think, every one of these pilots thinks, they know they're the best of the best because they've been told they're the best of the best forever. And they have no idea about what this kind of thing is. this real combat, this real chance of being in the thick of it and dying. Because they're the best of the best, because they graduated from Top Gun. They're the best of the best in theory. And that's what this movie tries to drive home. They're not the best of the best in reality. They're the best of the best in training and in training environments. They are untested, but they're told they're the best of the best. So they all have big egos, just like the previous movie did. And again, there's callbacks. Glenn Powell's Hangman is got the biggest ego on the planet, but he's also got that Maverick trend to him where he tends to leave his wingman, and that's why they call him Hangman. He'll leave you hang. So, I don't know if that's the original reason why he got called Hangman, but let's just say it's maybe a name that has developed an alternate meaning. And then you have Rooster, played by Miles Teller, who is Anthony Edwards' character, Goose's son. And then you find out there's a lot of history in Rooster. And Maverick, tried to keep him out of the naval aviation school, set him back years, things like that. It's just this training, this attack run that they're training for. It's extraordinarily difficult. Of course, once they start seeing it, none of them believe it can be done. And I love the part where, the shoe is on the other foot now. Now, Maverick is in the role of Viper and Jester from the original movie. Now he is the one trying to teach these young bucks. But something different happens here. Unlike before, where those guys, Maverick and Iceman and all of those guys, they could give the instructors a run for their money. They would have to break the rules to go get them, go down below the hard deck or whatever. And of course, the older guys, they did definitely show up the youngins. But in this movie, Maverick absolutely murders all of them. And it's not even close. It's not even close. He absolutely takes them to school. And I loved it all the way. I loved it. But it also wasn't just for show. It was written in there very well. Again, these kids, they're the best of the best. But the best ain't that good anymore because the best doesn't actually get up and do real aerial combat. They don't have a lot of experience, real life experience. So, I love that they didn't diminish Maverick and make him look like the old man who was just wanting to relive his glory days or try to get a little back, but then actually no, he's just a sad, pathetic old man, and these youngins need to show him how things are really done. I love that they played this correctly. So, I love the stakes because there's no real antagonist. The antagonist is trying to survive against very poor odds. That is the antagonist of this movie. That's the enemy, if you want to call it that. I mean, sure, there's enemy fighter jets. Sure, there's ground-to-air missiles and all that stuff. But this is the enemy, is not dying, trying to not die. That's their antagonist. And it's done really, really well. Because even as a person who's never flown a jet or a plane or, maybe I flew a $10 drone one time, you can tell it's hard. This is really hard. This is going to be virtually impossible. And they set that up very well. But yeah, this movie is just phenomenal. Oh my God, it's so good. I'm going to leave some things for you to see. I love the callback to the F-14 in there. It's so good. And there was a level of predictability to it, but I didn't mind it at all because I wanted it. And that's the thing, this movie gives you what you want. Even if you didn't realize it, it gives you exactly what you want. And you walk out of there with an ear-to-ear smile. Just happy. And that's the thing that struck me. I walked out of there extremely happy. I couldn't wait to get behind this microphone to talk about it. I mean, it took me 48 hours to get behind this microphone, and that drove me nuts. There's a stunning lack of CGI in this movie. And that's amazing and wonderful. They do this thing where and this movie sets us up really well. They take the realm of believability, what's called the suspension of disbelief, and they stretch it to the absolute breaking point, but they do not break it. And everything that is a little bit of a stretch, you're like, ooh, man, that had to happen just that way. Everything happens in as believable of a way as possible. Everything is just razor thin, And it's like, someone's basically winning, and the odds were like 5% they could make it, and that everything that needed to happen for that 5% to come up, well, it does. I love that they restored the Taiwanese flag on the back of his jacket. In the early trailers, 2-3 years ago, they'd showed that they had changed it, and of course, everybody knew that was probably for China. And well, apparently they, I don't know. I don't know if they found out that this was never going to go on China, or if they just stopped caring. But they definitely gave a middle finger to China by putting the Taiwanese flag back on his jacket like it was supposed to be. And I'm here for it. I love it. But the thing here, and I'm going to step back to the reality stretching for a second. And I'm going to use this to go against something else. I remember I recently had an episode about Justin Lin leaving the director's chair of Fast and the Furious 10 or Fast 10 or whatever. There's a stunning difference. What Tom Cruise is doing with his Mission Impossible and Top Gun movies is exactly the same as what the Fast and Furious franchise is trying to do. They are both aiming for the same general goal, which is to entertain the living hell out of the fans and to wow them with amazing stunts and all that, right? Spectacle. But there's a difference. The two different teams here, the Tom Cruise team, so to speak, and the Fast and Furious team, which is basically Vin Diesel. Let's be honest, he's one of the major driving forces behind the Fast and Furious movies, and apparently if you don't like what they want to do, you can go find another job, just like Justin Lin did, who Vin Diesel should be thanking profusely for even being able to make a Fast and Furious 10. Kind of disrespectful if you ask me, but whatever. But the difference between the two is Mission Impossible movies, Top Gun Maverick, these movies all do everything as real as possible with as little CG as possible. Tom Cruise will strap himself to the side of a plane. He will hang himself off of a big cargo net full of stuff from a helicopter. He will climb the outside of a building in Dubai that is, I think it's the tallest building in the world still. He will do all this stuff. He makes the stakes real. And he puts that human element into it, because if you could see yourself as being Tom Cruise right now, or Ethan Hunt, or Maverick, let's put it that way. He gives you this ability to see yourself in that position and go, oh my God, I would be absolutely crapping my pants. He's crazy. And I love it. I'm glad he's crazy, because I'm not crazy. I can't, no way you get me to do that. But I love that he's crazy. Okay? Do you ever get that with a Fast and Furious movie? I'm betting you don't. And the Fast and Furious movies have continually gotten bigger and louder and crazier. The problem is they've jumped the shark. The problem is that they didn't stop. They just stopped stretching reality, and they absolutely blasted through it. They absolutely blasted through the boundaries of reality with reckless abandon. I'm sorry. I mean, there's just so many contrivances, so many conveniences. Strapping rockets to a Pontiac Fiero and launching it into space. Are you shitting me? Whereas Tom Cruise here, he's like, hey, all these actors and actresses, all you actors and actresses are going to be in this. Probably not by himself, obviously, probably in conjunction with the Air Force or whatever. We have developed a training regimen that you will need to go through, and you will need to train in these jet planes for months and months. And you're going to have to do the camera work, the lighting, the editing in the cockpit, because there's no cameraman up there with you. You're the cameraman now. You're the actor. You're the cameraman. You're the director. You're the lighting director. You're the editor. All that. I know which one I want to see. I want to see the one that's real. I want to see the one that makes sense. I want to see the one that the script has written these scenes and built up to these scenes organically. As opposed to, I wonder if we can go to space now. And it's just like it's like these Fast and Furious movies are set up around the spectacle. Like, ooh, what would be a cool scene? Okay, let's figure out how to write that into the story. Let's find a way to cram it in there. Not distilled. That's rough vodka. I'm going to do a callback to my vodka thing. That's rough vodka. That's cheap. It's low shelf. It's bottom shelf vodka. Top Gun Maverick is top shelf vodka. And it costs the exact same. I know which one I'm picking. It costs the exact same to get into that show versus the other one. So, I cannot overstate how good the scene is with with Iceman. So basically, Val Kilmer's character, Iceman Kazansky, he's now an admiral. So he went on, and he's basically put in this movie as the only reason that that Maverick has not been grounded and or kicked out of, discharged from the Navy. And so he's been his guardian angel all this time, more or less. And they get together, and it is a touching scene. It is respectful, and it even kind of alludes to some of Val's real-life health struggles with his throat cancer and everything. It is so good, and, my eyes got a little teary up because it's done so well and because the acting is so good. And it is heartbreaking to see an actor who has made some of the most memorable characters on screen of my lifetime. I just, Val Kilmer was a phenomenal actor. It was notoriously hard to work with at times, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. He's an underrated actor in my mind. I could watch him playing Doc Holliday in Tombstone once a month, every month, and never get tired of it. I love that movie. And he's a big part of it. He's not the only part, but he's a huge part of why I love it. But that is a great scene. Very moving. I love that his original motorcycle, the original Kawasaki from the first movie, I don't know if it was a Kawasaki Ninja, but I believe it was, makes an appearance. So I love that that's back. And like I said, this movie does a good job of respecting the past without using it as a crutch. Miles Teller is phenomenal as Rooster. I don't know how they made him look so much like Anthony Edwards. I mean, I know they put a mustache on and gave him a haircut that's similar but not identical. But he embodied it. He looked like he could be Goose's son. I never once didn't believe it. And Miles Teller's a phenomenal actor. Forget Fantastic Four, that hot mess of a movie. He is a really good actor. Glenn Powell's Hangman is really good. I love that I took his character as a little bit of a blend between Iceman and Maverick from the first movie as far as their styles. He's extraordinarily cocky like Iceman, but he's also a rogue, a loner like Maverick. And then the other one that really stood out to me was Monica Barbaro, and her call sign was Phoenix. I really loved, in this day and age, it's not the boys' club it used to be. But of course, she's got to exist in that because it's still kind of a boys' club, at least to a point. And I love that she held her own without resorting to just shaming a guy for being a guy. As far as I'm concerned, she was one of the guys, in the sense that she blended in perfectly in the group. She held her own, much like Private Vasquez felt in Aliens, the sequel to Alien. I believed her every single second that she was just as badass as those guys, that she could hold her own with those guys, and she was one of the guys. And they didn't fall into the trap of doing the thing where they do the woke thing now where, she's perfect and never fails and never, whatever, and of course she has to teach these guys how wrong they are and all this other stuff. They didn't do any of that. There's absolutely no woke in this movie. And as much as I question whether I even want to talk about this, because I hate talking about this crap, but there's no woke in here. Maverick is a legit badass. And that is that is a quote from my notes here. They show it, and they prove it, and it's very understandable as to why he is still the baddest person in that room, in that flight room. The others are good, but they haven't seen what he's seen, and they haven't done what he's done. So, I'm going to wrap it up with that. This is a phenomenal movie. This is definitely going in my 4K collection. It'll absolutely go in my 4K collection alongside Top Gun, which I just realized by accident. I didn't realize that I didn't have that in my collection, which I have Days of Thunder. Why don't I have that, right? But I highly recommend you see the movie. It is an absolute blast. It is fun. It almost never falters. It never runs flat like sometimes when they're not up in the air. You know, and the old movie was what would fall to this a little bit, because we came home that night and watched Top Gun after that. Because my wife hasn't seen Top Gun in I don't know how long. I haven't seen it in a while. But, you know, when they weren't in the air, sometimes the movie would run a little slow. Not bad, but just a little slow. This movie doesn't do that. It runs correctly. When they're not in the air, there's still something going on. There's still drama happening. The story is still moving. And things are happening, and it all makes sense. So, absolutely amazing. I wish more movies were like this. Not because this is like, quote-unquote, making it the old way. No, they did it in the new way. They do it with current technology and all that. They just understood why some older movies seem to hang around better. You know, why they last longer. Why they stick in your brain longer. Why they're classics. And I think this movie is going to be a classic. I don't think I'm being hyperbolic saying that. So, anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please, please, please let me know your thoughts. Drop those comments on the YouTube video or the Rumble video. Message me on the, I'm going to, obviously post these on the Facebook page. So we can start a chat there. Comment there. I don't care. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Did you see it? What did you think? Did you love it? Was it the greatest? Was it the worst? Was it everything you hate about movies? Either way, let me know. And until next time, take care and have a great day. Thanks for listening. The Way of the Dad podcast is produced and recorded by, well, me, a stunningly average husband and father, who appreciates all of the likes, shares, reviews, and support you give. If you would like to reach out, you can find the podcast on its Facebook page, and of course you can email me at wayofthedadpodcast@gmail.com. Come back next time as we continue to fearlessly dive into the depths of dadness.